Yo, what up, folks? This is Rodney Farrell, the CEO of Farrell Development Group, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by E.I.T.H.R. Let's get it.
My name is Mary from Scotland, and I'm listening to E.I.T.H.R on the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Good job, babe.
So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
And happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy D-Cal here at the GNS HQ here in Sacramento, California. Just wanted to thank everyone for listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast. I just want to say I appreciate your time. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Shout out to Jay-Z. Hope everyone had a fabulous weekend. I mean, it was nice and comfortable and easy going. And then Sunday happened, and it was a little bit a reminder of how warm summer really is. So hope you guys are hydrated, and today is another beautiful triple-digit day here in the Valley. I want to give a special shout out to everybody that's everyone is still lighting their fireworks. You know, it happens to be, July 11th, 1 week after Independence Day. And you guys are still out there shooting them off in the sky. We appreciate your patriotism, especially everyone in the neighborhood who figure this shit's old and tired, especially, a week later. If you guys haven't, because we got some new followers, we got some new listeners, we got some new subscribers, and again, we appreciate you guys doing that. You're more than welcome to follow the E.I.T.H.R on social media. We have an Instagram account, and for the sophisticated folk, we have a Twitter account. Both handles are the same. It's at E.I.T.H.R. I know there's some people who are listening to my personal Facebook page link, and some of them can't find the account when they go to Spotify, when they go to iHeartRadio, or whatever the case may possibly be. But if you try putting in the E.I.T.H.R without the periods, just the E.I.T.H.R, you'll usually see the logo, the icons, the image, so on and so forth. Now, if you want to participate and chat with the group, just download the Spreaker app, Spreaker, and then you can find us there on Spreaker. And then you can chat with the podcast, and we can get a dialogue going that way. So I appreciate you guys doing that. Now, anyone who's listening to the podcast, you know the rules, you kind of know the routine. Those of you who are new to the podcast, and this is your first or your second time, again, thank you very much for giving me a second chance. I like to start everything off with giving a shout out to people and doing like a positive mantra, if you will, for people to listen to and to follow and so on and so forth. But before we get into that, let me go ahead and just let you know how serious this really is. Turn the music down. Pineapple does belong on pizza. Okay? Simple as that. If for whatever reason you believe that pineapple does not belong on pizza, you are uncultured, you are ungodlike, and you have no soul. So, for all the people out there who put pineapple on pizza, you are the true MVPs of this topic, and I salute you. Everybody else, kneel before Zod. Simple as that. Cool. So, motivation. Everyone needs a little bit of motivation in their life. Everyone needs a little bit of motivation in a daily. So I just want to make sure that everyone pays attention to this and gets something positive, encouraging out of this. So the motivation thing that I would like to say to everybody that's listening right now is really, really simple. And it goes a little bit like this. Pay attention. If you focus on the hurt, you will continue to suffer. If you focus on the lesson, you will continue to grow. Really simple. There's a lot of people out there who feel, woe is me, play the victim role in their circumstances. And again, there are certain circumstances for everybody of reasons of why, you're at a certain point in your life, or you're at a certain part in your career, or you're at a certain part in your relationship. Maybe just a certain part of your mindset and your emotional status, right? But if you focus on the pain, that's exactly where you'll stay. But if you look at the lesson that you're supposed to learn from it, you'll continue to grow. One thing I said in one of my previous podcasts, with our school system, the schools, they give you the lesson before they give you the test. And life tends to give you the test, and you must learn the lesson from that. So it's sometimes not always on the surface, right in front of your face. But most of the time, if you pay attention to the signs, the dots will connect and the pieces will fit. And just make sure you kind of keep that in mind. So, and you never know what somebody else is going through. The old adage, because there's always somebody battling a demon that you cannot see or you cannot feel, but you just know. So, not everyone processes that the same, but just one of those things. If you can do your best to just pay attention to the lesson and try not to take it out on other people, you would definitely go ahead and see how yourself grow. So some of the topics I want to talk about today, if you notice in the heading of the podcast, one thing is when it comes to the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. Some for the good, some for the bad. If it wasn't for the pandemic, I never would have got the idea of doing the podcast. A lot of people told me that I should definitely get into radio. Some people even suggested that I should do like voiceover work or something of the nature. And I gave 1/4 of a thought, but I never gave it a full thought. But the pandemic, unfortunately, even though it decimated a lot of the economy worldwide, a lot of the hustler inside of all of us was developed and born and created. And so I use this as an outlet to, express my opinion on certain things. A lot of the times we may not agree, but the whole aspect of this, and I say this every episode, is to give like a neutral perspective on everything. Anyone who knows me in real life on a personal level, I love to play devil's advocate. Even if the devil's advocate is a perspective that I don't necessarily agree with, because I try to look at everything from both sides or all possible angles. So that way, if something comes up, I know exactly how to deal with that. Most of the people we know only deal with things from their perspective. They only look at it through their eyes. But I do my best to try to walk in another man's shoes down that path so I can understand, okay, I still don't agree with what you're doing or what you're saying, but I have a better understanding of where you're coming from. So, with that said, businesses, some of the qualities in which businesses lack since the pandemic, I honestly feel that one of the biggest things that they've lacked for the longest time is customer service. I was born in the 80s and I grew up in the 90s, right? So I come from the era, and I'm part of the generation that knew life before the internet, right? The internet didn't really pop off until early 2000s, and Facebook became a thing in 2004, and the camera phone didn't exist until late 2002, beginning of 2003, when you had the attachable camera and you would sync it to your phone and download the images that way. So I go to customer service from back that point and before. And my mother worked at Safeway for 20 some odd years, and my father did, customer service work, so on and so forth. And I learned a lot of my customer service skills from, when I lived in the Bay Area, working in Stone Ridge Mall at Copeland Sports and Sprint PCS and all that fun stuff. So my experience is holding on to the generation that knew how to take care of a customer. And it seems a lot of people in today's world, if the answer is no, the answer is just no. Simple as that. Like, they don't even give you any other option of a resource or a solution. It's almost like the effort is non-existent. I remember working in retail, even if we knew the answer was no, we would at least put on the front for the customer that we're going to the back and we're looking for the size, or we're looking for the product, or we're calling another location to see if anyone had it. Again, I remember when I was working in, when I first moved to Sacramento, when the Copeland Sports inside of Arden Mall, which I believe now is Champs, when it's on the downstairs level by the Sears, which is no longer there. But I drove all the way out to the Copeland Sports in Chico for a pair of shoes for a customer because they had it in stock, and drove back. Granted, of course, that's going, up and beyond, way the fuck beyond the call of service, right? But these are the kind of customer service traits that existed before, where you kind of just did that for the customer, and because, hey, why not? Plus, it gave you a reason to get out of the store, it gave you a reason to get away from location, go on a road trip, so on and so forth. So it really wasn't too much of a loss for anybody. But customer service is definitely shot, in my opinion. And when you walk into a store, you don't even get acknowledged anymore. Nobody even recognizes, because literally everybody is on their phone. Again, I come from the generation, man, where you weren't allowed to have your phone on the sales floor. We had to sneak when there was no customers, and when the manager wasn't there, or when the manager was in the back, to text message, right? Or call somebody back from your pager. Now everyone is so facing to their screen that you will literally have a customer standing there, and I'll say from experience, you will usually stand there for 2-3 minutes, and they'll just be finishing their tweet, finishing their Snapchat, finishing their video because they're taking a selfie, doing whatever with the filter. Then they'll look up at you, so, oh, hold on. Like, you're going to put me on hold after I've already been waiting here for 2 minutes. Crazy. Some associates don't even walk from where they are to the customer. They stand there waiting for you to approach them. It's almost like an entitlement, or I don't know if that's training. And some of the supervisors and superiors at the job, they're no better. I've never worked at a job where the associate can say certain things to the manager or to a lead and get away with that. I've never worked in retail where, as a consumer, you walk into the sales floor and you walk in and you swear you're like at an Andrew Dice Clay stand-up comedy because of all the profanity that's going on and all the curse words that's being flown around. And it's almost like a lack of respect, not just for the consumer, but for the employer, for the workplace. And then you get the associates who do have a little bit more courtesy. People start to clash and bump heads, and then you have issues in the workplace. I don't know. For me, customer service is definitely one of those things that's lacking in the workforce. What do you guys think? Like I said, if you go to the Speaker app and download that and search for the E.I.T.H.R, you can go ahead and throw some chat, and I can acknowledge it. We could talk about it while the podcast is going live. But when it comes to customer service, man, like I said, it's for me, it's dead. What about you guys? What do you think is lacking? Do you think quality is lacking? Do you think scheduling is lacking? Do you think hiring, pay? What else do you think is missing from the workforce? And we'll get back into topic number 2 right after this.
Hi, Hi, this is Clarissa with Zipology, and we have a fantastic selection of tea-wear, and various other items. Currently, we are offering a huge 25% off sale with Christmas in July. Come check us out on Facebook at Rissa E.I.T.H.R. That's Rissa E.I.T.H.R.
Another tip I want to get into, I kind of mentioned it earlier, when it comes to fireworks. Like I said, today's the 11th, right? Independence Day was on the 4th, right? Perfect. Why it is so damn hard for some people just to be a good neighbor, right? Anyone who lives in a house, you have that neighbor who their yard is just like, do you have no shame for how you upkeep your home? And if the outside of your house looks like that, I can only imagine what the inside smells like. Now, granted, there's some people who have medical issues and they're unable to do certain things. There's some people who are constantly traveling. They're never home, so they're unable to attend to the house. I get it. I totally get it. And the way things are today's world, who in their right mind has the mindset or the strength, the motivation, the inspiration to want to do anything outside in this heat? Totally understand that. But when you go home and you see the work you put into your home, and then you got to look right next door to the left or to the right or across the street, and it looks like it's a homeless camp, I understand that's their property, but they don't understand that what they do also affects you too. If you happen to live in a house just like this, I'm sorry if this kicks home, but this is called the ether. This is the elephant in the room. And you are that damn elephant. And I think, feel, and believe that if you own a house, you should have some pride of ownership and at least keep the front of your home presentable. Because if you have people who are coming to your neighborhood and they're looking to purchase the property, one bad apple spoils a bunch, right? And we understand that sometimes there's debris that attracts unwarranted rodents and other visitors to the neighborhood that once didn't exist, that now do here. I remember living in Fair Oaks, California, for those who don't know. Fair Oaks, California is a subdivision in Sacramento County. Beautiful home. And there really wasn't any type of house that looked like it just didn't give a damn. So when you go through the neighborhood and you drive down the street, you kind of have this sense of pride, like, yes, I live here, right? But when I'm driving around some neighborhoods and I look and there's cars that have spider webs attached to the tires, and you literally see rodents jumping in the wheel well, I'm like, okay, come on. Again, it's your house, do what you do. This is not me necessarily judging, but I'm judging. You can always do like what they call like a garden party or a spring cleaning. If you have children or kids, you can kind of make it a game. Hell, like my mama told me, I had kids, so I would always have a remote control. Because when I grew up, the remote control was the kid, right? Mom called you in the house. You ran up the stairs, breathing hella hard, sweaty from playing with your friends. And she would ask you to hand her the TV guide that was 3 feet from her on the table while she was laying on the couch. She just couldn't see it because it was behind whatever plant she had as a centerpiece. So you had to come in there and hand her the TV guide, and then she would tell you to wait so you can change the channel because the TV had knobs to it. Again, this is why you have kids, so they can be your dishwasher. They can be your house cleaning. They can be your remote control. They can fix the rabbit ears with the foil on it, right? So I kind of come from the era of, well, if you have children, teach them the pride of ownership and a little bit of yard work. It just looks presentable. It looks now again, if you're the kind of person that don't want people at your house, you just want to look unwelcoming, hey, you're winning the game. But for those of us who don't want to see that, it's not just about you, but it's about everyone else in the neighborhood. And if you live in an apartment complex, damn, listen, you have 3 other neighbors, one above you, one right next door to you, and one diagonally from you. So you got to take in consideration there are 3 other personalities that are surrounding you. And if you are on the top floor of a multi-level apartment, you have several personalities, one above, one below, one immediately to your side, one directly across from you, and a couple of diagonally from you. So if you're the kind of person that likes to do rain dancing at night with your kids and pet, you have to take in consideration if the person above you or below you, do they work late night? Do they work early morning? Do they have children? Maybe they sleep, right? One of my pet peeves when it comes to being a good neighbor, oh my God, do not park in my God bless parking stall. Do not park in my driveway. Do not block my driveway. Listen, if you are doing a delivery service, here's something you can do, and it's really, 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 really simple. Put your hazard lights on. Simple as that. Put your hazard lights on, and that way somebody common sense would know, okay, this person is going to be here temporarily. Because their lights are on, so they're going to be a quick second. I don't know when they got the call. I don't know how long they've been gone. But at least I know they're not going to be around or in my stall for a long period of time. So most people do not have a problem with waiting. It's a courtesy thing. I mean, let's face it, man. It's when I come home and someone's parked in my space, it irritates me because I want to come home and decompress. Some neighbors, I know you have your visitors, you have your friends, you have whomever coming to visit you, and they're either picking something up real quick, dropping something off real quick. Like I said, if you do the hazard lights, at least that lets a person know, okay, you acknowledge you don't belong here, and you're only going to be here for a quick second. But there are some neighbors who are just completely mentally absent of the consideration that someone lives here. And they always think, oh, it's going to be real quick. And I don't know how many times I've come home, like I said, someone's parked in my spot, and I've honked my horn 3-4 times. And they happen to come outside with an attitude, like, park somewhere else. I'm like, girl, if you don't get your ass out my stall, your car's gonna cost $400 because the tow truck will be here in 20 minutes. So, listen, I'm not all about starting fights. I'm very anti-confrontational. But if you mess with the bull, you will get the horns. That's just common sense, right? And this is not being tough guy on podcast. This is more of how you be a proper neighbor. Be considerate. If you wouldn't want somebody doing this to you, why TF are you going to do it to somebody else? Knowing how it feels. It's almost like you're provoking somebody. It's almost like you're being antagonistic on purpose. And like I said, you cause a lot of friction between you and your neighbors this way. When I was younger, driving through neighborhoods and driving through apartments, blasting my music was like the thing to do, right? Because you didn't give a damn who you woke up, because that was a good song and your bass was just knocking and your system just slapped. Well, when you got to work at 1:30 in the morning and somebody's parked by your bedroom window, you have a completely different perspective of turn that shit down. So if you have neighbors, or if you have people coming to visit you, neighbor, make sure they're courteous and considerate of the people who live around you. Because Lord knows that one day when you need quiet because your kids are asleep, you would hate for that to happen to you. So make sure you're not that person. Just be nice. Make sure you're not that person. Okay? Now, here's what I really want to get into, because I think this is going to be a really interesting topic, and anybody who knows what this is knows what this means. So for those who don't know, and for my listeners who love elephants, you obviously knew what the sound effect was. But here at the E.I.T.H.R, whenever I sound this, that means we're going to talk about the elephant in the room. We're going to talk about the topic that really is going to get on my damn nerves, that's got on my damn nerves, and probably is on your damn nerves too. So, I'm going to ask you guys a question. And this question is a very, I'm not going to say loaded question, but this question may find some rounds being fired off, if you know what I mean. And that is this. Could you date, commit, or marry someone who currently has, or someone who had a OnlyFans account? Second part of that question. Would you be comfortable with that person continuing their OnlyFans account? Would you be comfortable if that person wanted to create a OnlyFans account? I asked that question for a couple of different reasons. One, in today's world, it's a very, very, very lucrative way of income. I mean, there are people who are making easily 4 to 5 digits, not just a month, but 4 to 5 digits a week, depending on what it is and who their clientele and who their market. There are some people who frown upon this. There are some people who are very lax and doesn't really care about it. I think it could go either way depending on the person, right? I mean, listen, let's backtrack real quick. We, here at the E.I.T.H.R podcast, we talked about the situation where there was a gentleman who found a chest in his wife's, like a vault, if you will, in his wife's closet. He confronted her to ask her what it was. He had her open it. There was some knickknacks, some paperwork, and there was a box with a man's name on it. They opened the box, and they inside there was, bottom line, a molding of her ex-boyfriend that she dated 7 years from that time. They've been separated for 7 years, but she still had the molding of this man in a box in her vault, in her closet, that her and her husband of 3 years had moved to. Did you hear what I said?
What the fuck did you just say?
Basically, she had a molding of her ex-boyfriend that was broken up with her from 7 years ago. And he gave this to her for whenever he wasn't around, to think of him, to let her know he was still there. Right, exactly. We talked about the situation where would you be okay with this if your partner did this OnlyFans thing? I personally, I think it would all depend on the maturity of the couple, right? One of my friends, she said she would be okay with if her man did it, because it's her who he come home with. It's her who he's coming home to. So she would be fine with it, because everybody is just looking, not touching. She gets to touch and she gets to look. So she's not losing anyway. They're being teased with what he has. She's being pleased with what he has. And I get that. I remember one of my friends said he couldn't do it because he couldn't be out and about having a conversation with his friends, and his friends knew what his girl's nipples looked like. That just wouldn't be cool with him. That just wouldn't be okay, right? I guess it's very touchy, right? Now, let's say you meet somebody. They have an OF account. It's very lucrative. You guys get serious together. You know, the dating thing has taken off. And you want to kind of take the next step, whether it's an engagement or move in with one another, whatever the case may be. Would you still allow them? I guess allow is a very strong word, especially in today's market. But would you feel comfortable? Would you be okay with them continuing their OnlyFans account despite them having this account before you met, right? It's kind of like with fellas, it's like if you dated a woman who was a stripper and you met her at the strip club, right? You met her that way and you became a regular, and then you started to kind of have feelings for one another, right? At what point do you have the right to ask her to stop doing that? And are you asking her this because she doesn't need to do it anymore? Or are you asking her to do this because of your insecurity? Which one is it? Are you doing it because you can't stand the fact that your friends are making comments about how your woman looks on stage when she does that thing in that place with that prop and apparatus? What is it, right? Ladies, would you be able to date your man if you knew that he did a couple of dope films? Is it one of those things out of sight, out of mind? Is it one of those things, I know what he's doing, but there's a difference between work and passion? Can they separate that? Could you separate that? Is that it? I feel that's a very interesting dynamic, man, because even though that's their profession, that's their work, that is their means of income. How could you tell someone to stop doing something that yields them during a quarter of a year that takes you 12 months to make? Is it something like that? I remember my high school sweetheart years ago. We haven't spoken in well over 10 years, I think. But when I was in my early 20s, we got back in conversation, and I was joking with her. I said, ever since you became this dancer out in Vegas, if it wasn't for me in high school, opening some ideas, you would have never existed. So I kind of, deserve a finder's fee. I'm completely just being tongue in cheek and joking around with her. And I was doing real estate, and I said, well, how much would your partner need to make, or what would it take for you to stop stripping if you got with somebody and they wanted you to stop doing it? What would it take? And she says, again, this is like in 04, 05, 06, before the real estate crash. She says to me, well, I make about 25 grand a month. So he would need to easily to subsidize my income 30 grand a month for me to be comfortable. And I remember this woman telling me stories, man, like her girlfriend's house at the time got raided, and she had just crashed her GS 300 Lexus in Vegas, if I remember the story correctly. And she went and bought a CLK cash. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. She's like, what about you? Oh, got this forest green LX She's like, oh, Lexus? Nah, Honda Accord, but it's an LX. I mean, it was an EX. It was an EX because it had the sunroof. I was like, no, but it got the dual exhaust and low profile 20-inch rims. I'm the only person with 20-inch rims on a Honda, and so I mean, I'm kind of a big deal. We kind of laughed that off or whatever. But it was one of those things where I'm not going to pay $30,000 a month just to get you back. Like, what man is going? Now, there's somebody out there who would do something like that, right? You call them "quote unquote" sugar daddy. But that's what she did. Now, from my understanding, she doesn't do that no more. She's given that life up. She went back to school. Like, that's out of her, quote unquote, out of her system. Cool, great, awesome, fantabulous. Good for her. Good for her. But can anyone think like that? Could anyone be okay with that? Would anyone have a problem with that? Like, that's a very, very valid question. Like, would it be a situation where, okay, if you're the talent, I do the books? Is it a partnership? If that's the same thing, well, how is that different than pimping? Is it different from pimping because, well, we don't see it that way? Right? Personally, for me, I feel I would be okay with it, but then that also depends on if you have a partner who understands what threshold not to cross. And you got to be in a relationship with somebody. I feel that, you can do it, but you also have to know this is what we signed up for. Because let me tell you something, men, as strong as we are, our egos are extremely fragile. Our egos are extremely fragile, right? Women, I don't know if you guys have the same type of reaction when it comes to certain things and it comes to your pride. But externally, on the outside, it looks as if women can take more criticism than a man can. And maybe that's because from the time of you being developed growing up, you've always had people looking and judging and gawking and staring and catcalling. So you've learned how to build an immunity and a way to process that, possibly. Men, we don't. I mean, we are so particular when it comes to praise and credit that if we don't get it, it's almost like our whole existence gets shot, right? So I feel like if you are in a relationship with somebody, more so the man has to be reassured, this is what we're doing. I'm not crossing this line. And again, this is a general statement. There's some men who are way more confident and way more comfortable. They're not really worried about it. There was a movie in the early 90s called Animal Instinct. And I don't know how the hell I stumbled across this movie at 11 years old. But it was on television. And the movie was about this husband and wife who was having problems with their marriage. I don't remember if they were going through a separation or if they were kind of heading in that direction of the separation. But in the movie Animal Instinct, the woman had an affair on her husband. She cheated on her husband. And the husband caught her. I don't remember if he caught her in the act or if he caught her after the fact. But the twist was, he wasn't mad. He wasn't upset. He wasn't bothered. He was more aroused by it. He was more turned on by it. And if I remember the movie correctly, she was talking to a counselor about the situation and she's telling the story. And that's kind of how the movie breaks down. And so what they did was they set up a camera in the room and he would be in another room watching on television her with people. And he would kind of be her audience, but he would also be the security. So if something did go awry, went sideways, went, whatever, he would go in the room and de-escalate the situation. Is it kind of like that? Is that one of those situations where, okay, You can do an OnlyFans like that where your partner. There's people out there who's doing it. There's one woman right now. I read an article whose son is her camera person. He does the camera. He does the viewing. He does the editing and the videography of her OnlyFans account. Don't look at me. Don't look at your radio. Don't look at your phone. Don't judge me because I told you. I'm gonna let you know what the world is right now. So there's a lot of people who are okay with that. But the question is for you guys, the listeners of the podcast, are you cool with that? And I kind of want to stress out that I don't want there to be any judgment, even though human nature, you're going to judge it anyway. But it's like, is that something that you can be okay with? Like yourself, with your partner? Are you guys at a situation where one of you could and the other person can just observe from the distance? Is that something? Is that a no-no? Is that a taboo? Did I just wake an idea up for some people? If I did, you're welcome. You're very welcome. I just want a 20% finder's fee. But that's, for me, that's a little wild. Not because, again, not judging. It's just, that's interesting that there's some couples who, and if that's how you roll, that's how you roll. But would you be okay with that? Again, would you be okay with them continuing? At some point, I feel that if we're getting to the marriage stage, I think I might ask my person to cut that off. Like, you know what, we don't need that no more. I kind of see it growing up, in Oakland in the 80s and 90s, in the Castro Valley in the early mid 90s, Hayward, late 90s, early 2000s. I say a Bay Area rule is you get in, you get out. You get in, you get what you need, maybe a little bit extra to kind of in case something happens, and you dip before anything goes sideways. Because I honestly truly feel that if you do it for too long, someone may get hurt. Someone may get caught up. But again, is that dependent on the maturity of the partner? Is that dependent on the maturity of the couple? So, it's definitely one of those, interesting. Like I said, if some of your feedback, if possible, will be great. One last thing I do want to talk about in the podcast before I go ahead and call it a day. There's another meme on our Twitter account and our Instagram account. Again, if you want to follow either one of them, it's at E.I.T.H.R. Something that I posted early today. Where you're not used to being confident, confidence feels like arrogance. Damn, that is so true. When you're used to being passive, assertiveness feels like aggression. It's a very different feeling for that. When you're not used to getting your needs met, prioritizing yourself feels selfish. Your comfort zone is not a good benchmark. I mean, how true is that for some of us, right? When you're insecure, very unsure of certain things about yourself, and then you start to feel this confidence or this self-belief, you take that as an arrogance, which it is not, but it feels that way. Now, there's a difference between cocky and arrogance. Very, very, very fine line between the two. And understand something, and I said this a couple of years ago, and I'm going to put this on record. When it comes to successes and things you accomplish, you're going to be damned if you do. You're going to be damned if you don't. Because, ladies and gentlemen, those who speak about themselves are viewed as cocky. Those who keep to themselves are viewed as arrogant. But that type of judgment usually comes from those who are insecure either way. So even if you feel good about yourself, there's somebody out there who doesn't feel good about themselves, are going to project their insecurity onto your confidence and call you arrogant or view you as arrogant, right? There's someone who's going to take your passiveness, that they're used to you being passive, used to you being submissive, used to you not giving a shit. That the moment you start to prioritize, they are going to view you as selfish because they always knew you were there to depend on. It's like someone who always says yes. And the reason why you say yes most of the time, and this is coming from self-experience, is you want your availability to come off as showing people how much you care. You want your availability to project onto people, I got your back. I got you when you need me. Don't even worry about it. I will always be here for you. I will always be there for you. Whenever you need me, you know where to find me. That's kind of where that comes from. But then you get upset when you realize that no one else does the same for you, which makes that void that you're trying to fill of availability and for others to reciprocate that, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So when you do prioritize yourself and say, you know what? No doesn't mean I don't like you. No just means, you know what? I'm starting to like me a little bit more. Those people who took advantage or had this expectation that you will always be around, they're going to view you as selfish because they were dependent on you. They were dependent on you. And now that you took away that dependability, quote unquote, air quotes, from them, they may grow resentment towards you. And that's fine, because if they do that, you have now learned the lesson. They didn't give a damn about you in the first place. They just gave a damn about what you could do for them. And now that that's gone, you are no need to them, right? Again, when you're not used to your needs getting met, prioritizing yourself feels selfish. That's okay. Every now and then, ladies and gentlemen, it's perfectly healthy to be selfish for yourself. So don't worry about that. Aggression, it feels different because, again, you're putting yourself first. And then when you start asking for things from people, it's a very uncomfortable thing. One thing that has helped me out with this topic right here of, being aggressive and arrogant and prioritizing yourself, kind of getting out of your comfort zone of being the back burner for everybody, of you putting you on the back burner for everybody. One thing that's helped me personally, I will have these conversations out loud with myself, almost like an imaginary friend. If you want to feel less weird, or maybe more weird, depending on you, talk to yourself in the mirror. Talk to yourself in the mirror. That way you see what it is that you look like. This is a great tool to do when you're, trying to recite something like a sales pitch or a script or something, because you get to see what you look like, which is exactly what other people will see when you're talking to them. So you kind of get it from that perspective, but have a full-fledged conversation with yourself out loud about it. I said this in previous episodes, is I'll have a conversation and the other person that I'm talking to, in my mind out loud, it's a contrarian to the topic. So what I'm doing is the ideas that are making me hesitant, the ideas that are holding me back, I'm giving them a voice to speak so I can hear them. Even though it's me talking to myself one-on-one, I'm getting that conversation out. Because remember, I said this before, words are energy. And the mind and the body, they can't really differentiate sarcasm from authenticity. So when you're being authentic or when you're being sarcastic, it doesn't care. It just hears it. And it processes what you say. It takes that energy from it and it applies it to your physiology. It applies it to your mindset. It applies it to you emotionally. So it's very crucial that when you have these conversations, you speak the other side too, just so you can hear it. And what happens is when you see, hear, or read these comments or these replies, it doesn't affect you as much because you basically didn't hurt your own feelings at the same time defend your own feelings simultaneously within yourself. So it it better prepares you for any type of rejection or any type of praise. It not only makes you stronger, but it also keeps you humble. So make sure you guys do that. That's very crucial. I'm considering adding another episode on Wednesdays at 3:30 because, hey, who doesn't love this podcast, right? So in the next few weeks on Wednesdays at 3:30, you guys might see me go live. If so, great. If not, we'll be back Friday at 3:30 p.m. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you very much for your time. You guys stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll talk to you guys in the future. Be good.
What you know about the dopest dispensary in OKC with wheels? It's the only dispensary in OKC with wheels. Hot box delivery service. Discreet and dependable with all the biggest name brands and exotics, including Cookies, Backpack Boys, Jokes Up, Rap Packs, Baller Jars, Baller Bars, Cars and more. Make sure you hit them up at 405-835-0222, 405-835-0222, 405-835-0222, hotboxdeliveryok.com.
Good day. So, I hear you're looking for something stylish and impressionable. Something that will show the world your strength and your superpower. Well, can't help you with the superpowers, but I can help show the world how strong you really are. Well, strengthen your character, shop by Nat. Are you listening? Good. Jot this down. Mile.today. Again, that's mile.today. MILE.today. A GNS collection.